Welcome back to my channel, or just welcome if you're new here. Most of you probably are. I didn't know if I was going to make a second video, but I was really surprised by the amount of people who seemed to really enjoy the video, left a comment. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to pull some of those up and talk about them because a lot of people left some really cool points. I even read a book that somebody suggested. So basically I've been in Stockholm for 2 weeks now. I'm taking my first class, which is a photography class. It's been really fun. Just some credit that'll help me graduate, and not too difficult of a course. My next class starts in about a week, and that'll be a writing course, which I'm really excited for. And then I'm going to Copenhagen for 3 weeks after that for the third course I'm taking. But anyway, I don't really have any format for this video, but I want to talk about some of the books I've been reading, some of the short stories I've been reading. I'm going to pull up some of the comments and whatnot that people left to kind of talk about. And yeah, so I guess I'll just start off with everything I've read since I filmed the last video, which was a week and a half before I left. No, it was a week and a half before I left college, maybe 2.5 weeks before I came out here. I have no idea actually, but so I read The Happy Couple by Nisha Dolan. I did look up how to say her name before this because I would have butchered her name like I seem to do everybody's. That was a pretty good read actually. Maybe the beginning of it, I was like, oh, there's some, cliche themes here. I'm not really loving this a lot. But what kept me going was kind of the structure of it, which is, it's about two people, a couple, the happy couple who aren't really so happy. And she really develops the characters from every angle because there's kind of like 5 parts. And each part is like, the first part is like, I don't have the book with me, I don't really remember the order, but it was like, the first one's like, let's say the best man, and then the maid of honor, and then the sister, and then the bride, and then the groom. And so that's definitely not the order, but that's kind of what she did. So each chunk of the book is from a different person's perspective, and it all leads up to the wedding day. It was pretty interesting. I would recommend it. It reminded me a bit of like a Sally Rooney kind of whatever. I don't know if it's interesting. I've been reading a lot of Irish authors lately, I guess. I have this Keegan here that I've been reading, and I have this Sally Rooney that I just bought. I actually haven't read Normal People yet, so I'm excited to do that soon. I've only read Beautiful World, Where Are You? Which is another one where I really enjoyed the structure. There's like kind of emails going back and forth between characters every other chapter. Really interesting. So I enjoyed that. It's not like my favorite book ever, but it was a fun read and one that I'm glad I stuck with. The second one I read after that was Knife by Salman Rushdie, which I talked about, said I was going to read on the last video. That was really enjoyable as well. It's a little, I guess the writing style is simple, but it's crafted just perfectly, like a perfect sort of essay, because it's a retelling of events. He's investigating things. He even, if you didn't watch the last video, Knife Meditations on an Attempted Murder. Salman Rushdie was attacked 2022 maybe for a book he wrote a long time ago. Not even really that. He kind of dives into this guy who didn't even really know why he was attacking him. It's worth a read for sure. And he doesn't actually want to address this killer, this attempted murderer, whatever, the guy who tried to kill him. And he was actually stabbed 13 times. So again, really impressive that he wrote this book like a year later. Absolutely crazy. And he had a book coming out at like the time of all of that happening too. But he like addresses the killer, like has a hypothetical back and forth with him, which is really interesting. And then other than that, he talks about kind of his marriage. He talks about his past, his future, what he hopes, his fears, like everything. It's kind of just all about him. And it was super interesting. I really did like that. And that one was pretty quick to get through again, but definitely worth a read. And then since I've been here, I don't have either of those books with me. Since I've been here, I have read Time Shelter by, gonna get this one wrong, Georgy Gospodinov. This book, I don't know if you can see it. So somebody left a comment on the video and basically mentioned that they were wondering what I thought about this book, and I was in the airport, and I was like, I definitely don't have enough books for the trip. I probably do, but and I was like, oh, it was there, and I remember seeing it in the comment, and I was like, okay, I'll pick it up. And so I read that. It's a very interesting idea. It's sort of like this guy, Gostein. It's told from the perspective of the author. I'm not going to try and say his name again. Like, he is writing a novel about this thing, and then the thing is happening at the same time. But he was writing the novel first. Very weird. So he's kind of got a clinic where he takes like Alzheimer's, dementia patients, and people who are losing their memory, and kind of transporting them back in time almost by having these like rooms, let's say, from the 1970s to the 1960s or whatever. And eventually this becomes so popular with people who don't even have Alzheimer's, who just want to like go back into the past, that it turns into this like global thing. And that's the part that made the novel a little shaky for me, because it didn't feel like it was fully developed enough. It felt like there was this kind of really interesting, targeted, small clinic for Alzheimer patients. And all of a sudden, there's like referendums going on across all of Europe. Like, it was just, I don't know. The middle of the novel I loved. The writing was really, really well done, as to be expected, with this was the International Booker Prize winner, which I didn't know what that meant. I know because the Booker Prize is international, but it basically means the best novel translated into English. So the person who actually won the award is Angela Riddell. Sorry, my bookmark. She actually won the award for like best translation of the year. Because this one in 2023, it's like a 2020 novel. Came out right before the pandemic, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's very, very, very interesting. That's another topic that was brought up is translation. So that's something I'll touch on for sure. But it just felt like some of the world building didn't some stuff was left out. And in a novel of 300 pages, I just don't think that should be the case. I really liked it in parts, but the ending was hard for me to get through. At a certain point, it was like, okay, what are we doing? And I must be completely alone, because every review of this book I've read is like, it's fantastic. So that's just on me, but that's just how I felt about it. When it comes to translations, somebody mentioned, I talked about Victor Pelevin. I'm just screwing everybody up today. Who wrote Amun-Ra, a book that I talked about last time, a Russian novel. And somebody said, like, I wonder what stays of him after translation. His writing style is so fantastic. That's something that's really interesting to me, because I read so many novels in translation. The one I'm reading right now, 100 Years, or no, not 100 Years of Solitude, Chronicle of a Death Foretold, by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, is translated. This one, Death of Ivan Ilyich, translated. So I prefer to just think of them as if they were written in English. Like, I obviously don't have the option of, comparing and contrasting. So I'm like, oh, I'm missing things. This sucks. Like, it's just not going to be a good experience. And George Saunders, maybe my favorite author, wrote a book called "Swim in the Pond in the Rain," where he talks about the Russian short stories he teaches at Syracuse University. And he said, like, that's what he does. He just, like, tries to focus on the versions he has, and look at that, because things are going to get lost in translation. And that's something that's really interesting, but it's just, you gotta deal with it. And, but yeah, obviously this translation, I'm sure, was fantastic. You got a lot of really cool stuff in the writing of this book. There were a lot of sections where it was like, man, this is such an awesome short story. It's like, that little part is so cool. I think I even wrote some of them down somewhere. I mean, like, there was something about, like, page 50, like a device that recorded smells, because that's really where the memory holds. Like, all these little ideas where it's like, that could be a great short story, or even a thing of itself. And so it felt like they were just kind of thrown in there, and it was really cool, really unique style, but I just don't think it was for me as much as I was hoping it was. But yes, so, and then right now I am reading Chronicle of a Death Foretold. I'm about halfway through that. I'm having this weird experience with it where I'm like, I think I actually may have read this in school in like 6th or 7th grade because I'm remembering things. But either way, it's really, really great so far. I love, and this isn't going to spoil anything because it's the beginning, but I love when a book starts off, reminds me like a Paradise by Toni Morrison type, where on the day they were going to kill him, Santiago Nassar got up at 5:30 in the morning to wait for the boat the bishop was coming on. Like right off the bat, it's like this is going to happen, which is really cool. I just still don't know if it happens or not. Could be wrong, but it really hooks you like right away, which is super interesting. And then I mentioned I was going to read Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, which I didn't yet. But I started off reading her short story collection, Walk the Blue Fields, which is one of her first, like 2007 or so. And that's been really good. The first one was whatever, like good, but nothing like super memorable. Walk the Blue Fields, the title story, which I just finished, so I read 2 so far, was awesome. I love how this was kind of the opposite of that, where you like, she was hooking you in parts, and then you just didn't know what was like the tension. Like there were these like little hints. It's about a priest who's officiating a wedding, and there's little things that he notices that are off, and you're like, okay, what's the deal? And then once you get to the tension, it's almost near the end. Like that's the thing that's been bugging him the whole time, which is a really cool story. So I'm sure that's online somewhere if you just want to check that one out. But I will definitely let you guys know what I think of the rest of them. There's like 4 or 5 more, I think. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the short stories I've been reading, because I've been reading a lot of George Saunders, and then Alice Munro, who I never actually read any of, but she passed away recently, and I'm a part of this thing George Saunders does called Story Club, which is like a Substack thing he does, and the amount of work he puts into it is awesome, and it's totally worth it. He gives so much great writing advice, reading advice, like just it's awesome. It's like being part of a class, and it's been an awesome experience for me. Actually, I mentioned earlier maybe that he's one of my dad's favorite authors too, and he had gone to a talk, signed me up for that a while ago, and I had been like whatever. But now I'm really into it, so that's been really cool. And he was talking about her after she died in one of his posts, and so I read a couple of her stories. I have what is this? Amundsen Pulled Up, which I haven't read yet. I'm about to. I've heard great things about that, but I read Haven and The Beggar Maid, which were both really cool. Let me see if I can find Haven. Yeah, I mean, it's just, she's just such a talented writer, and it's one of those stories where sometimes I'm not in the mood to read, and sometimes, like, no matter what, like, it feels like she just took me both times, even when I felt like I couldn't get through anything else. The Beggar Maid was really interesting too. It's one of those things where like you just want something to happen so bad, and it just isn't happening. And the guy he's so bad to the girl Rose in this story. He says, I mean, he tells her she's like, he likes her. She's like the beggar maid because she's like, oh my God, he's just love bombing her the whole time. It's really, it's really well written and a really good story. Would highly recommend. It's in one of those the old New Yorkers too, which is kind of cool. I like that little format where there's like drawings all over. She has a lot of collections though. I'm definitely going to get to some of those. I know people were talking about short story collections in the comments as well on the last video, which was, I totally agree. I mean, I love short stories so much. I'm reading them all the time. I have so many pulled up on my computer right now. What is this? Joyce Carol Oates. Yeah, I mean, Alice Munro, George Saunders. I have so many that I need to read. I obviously am going through the Claire Keegan collection right now. And then some other stuff I'm going to read, I guess I could talk about. I'm really looking forward to this, which is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I've read a lot of his short stories. Barn Burning, I read maybe a month ago. If you're going to take anything from this video, read Barn Burning by Haruki Murakami and let me know what you think, because that is so cool, such an interesting ending. Birthday Girl by him is very similar in terms of the weird ending, but Barn Burning is one of my favorite short stories, absolutely. So I'm excited to read this. My teacher recommended it out of all of his novels. So I'm excited for that. I bought this here. I'm buying too many books. It is what it is. Sorry. What else do I have? Oh, I really liked the Knife and kind of that just essay structure where it's really discussing like ideas and whatnot. And so I did pick this out. This is called Feel Free by Zadie Smith. I don't know if I said that wrong. That's someone my dad has read, but I have not read. And I saw this collection of essays and I read the back and it just looked really cool. So I'm excited to start that. I feel like that could be a good like morning thing. And then I just have some other short stuff. So the Tolstoy Death of Ivan Ilyich, which I found out I'm going to be reading for my Russian class in the fall. Kind of annoying to be reading it twice, but I do want to read it, so I'm not gonna wait. And then Breakfast at Tiffany's, another small one that I took off my dad's shelf as well. So that's kind of the list right now. I'm sure I will pick up some more stuff. Hopefully not. Because this is enough for me for sure. But I'm really, really excited about that. I'm trying not to read too much, but I feel like I want to come in here and talk about stuff, and I want to write, and I want to do all this stuff. Meanwhile, like there's all these experiences to be had being in a new city and whatnot. Maybe I'll do like a daily vlog or something. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know. I mean, we've been doing a lot of cool stuff. There's been there's been like a jazz club here, which has been really cool. I went to the national women's soccer team game. We went to like a club that had like an 80s night, which was really fun. The nature is incredible, some hiking, just a lot of really cool stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to share some of that. Obviously what I'm comfortable doing more so is just sitting down and talking about books. But yeah, I guess I'll finish this video off. I don't want it to be as long as the last one. Talking about The Falls and Thursday by George Saunders. Because getting back to what I was saying with the time shelter world building, something I think that's really cool and something I struggled with in one of my first workshops. I wrote like a dystopian kind of story, and my teacher sent me, Ghoul by George Saunders, and he was like, take a look at this. I think you're doing too much world building. It's just not fitting. And I read it, and it's super interesting. Saunders writes a lot of wacky, funny stories, and a lot of them you just don't know what's going on. You're put in this world, and clearly Saunders has rules in his mind, but those rules aren't explained to you. Where in a novel, I feel like they usually are, or maybe should be, or whatever. In a short story, these things kind of happen, and that's really interesting to me. And something that he did in Thursday, which is one I read recently, which also has to do with people being, I guess it's different, but it's kind of like people with memory loss. Was his memory lost? I think he had memory loss and reliving actual memories. So it's like you're kind of there. And there's a big twist in that, so that was a good story. Ghoul is great. I think that one's from Liberation Day. And then I read The Falls. I was listening to him talk about his earlier work. I listened to any podcast George Saunders is on, I'll listen to. I'd love to hear him talk about stuff. And actually recently I was watching, he did a conversation with one of my favorite musical artists, Jason Isbell. Got Jason's shirt on here. Great songwriter. And that was really interesting. What was I saying? I heard him talking about, his earlier stuff. So I read The Falls, and that was really cool. It was kind of like, it's just, he has such a wacky, just straight style, and I wish I could write like that. And it's so fascinating, especially when you get to the end of a story and you're just like, you don't know what to think, like what just happened. It was like I was really in that the whole time, which is a really cool experience, because when I started reading again, I mentioned like I might have read this in 7th grade or whatnot. When I was younger, I read a lot. I obviously read some for school, but in high school I kind of stopped. Maybe like 7th grade I kind of stopped, besides school stuff. And getting back into it was was not easy, and sometimes I felt really lost a lot of the time, and I still do with certain books. But short stories are really helpful with that, where I can be like, okay, this is like the joy of reading. I'm hitting this thing. It's pretty short, or maybe it's a little longer, but it's still not super long, and I get this whole story sucked into it. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Because yeah, again, when I first started up back reading again, a lot of times I just wasn't able to get into stuff, and that was difficult. So I think I talked about everybody's comments, the translations. I'm just really appreciative of everybody who watched and left something. I really was not expecting that, and there were like maybe like 10 people who said something, and yeah, it means a lot. I'm glad people like this. I don't know. I thought it was kind of stupid, but it's something I wanted to do. I really like talking about stuff, and might as well try to put it out there. And yeah, but I'm gonna read some more. Get back to you on some of that. Maybe try to show some of the stuff I'm doing while in Stockholm. This was just a quick talking video because it's been 3 weeks or a month or so that I wanted to kind of put out. But yeah, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you made it all the way through, I don't know right now how long this has been going for. I hope it's not 22 minutes again, but yeah. Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great whatever day you're watching this and whatever day this comes out. Yeah.